May 19th, 1536. A chilling dawn broke over the Tower of London, its ancient stones silhouetted against a sky that offered no promise of warmth or comfort, anticipating the arrival of a foreign blade. A queen, once heralded as the very dawn of a new era, prepared to face a brutal end, her destiny irrevocably intertwined with the caprices of a king's insatiable desire for power and the precarious legitimacy of a burgeoning dynasty. This was no ordinary execution. It was a devastating spectacle designed to terrorize, an indelible stain on the annals of English history that would haunt the collective memory of a nation for centuries to come. The air itself seemed to grow heavy with the weight of unspoken dread and quiet horror, carrying the faint, mournful toll of church bells across the Thames, each deliberate chime a stark reminder of the irreversible march of time towards an unthinkable public ceremony of annihilation. Her hands, once adorned with the symbols of royal authority and the promise of a future line, trembled slightly as she adjusted the simple, dark gray gown, stripped of all regal embellishment. Every breath taken within those formidable, shadowed walls was a breath closer to oblivion, yet a profound sense of dignity, born from unimaginable torment and spiritual conviction, settled upon her features, a quiet defiance in the face of absolute power. The inner courtyard, usually a bustling hub of activity, lay eerily silent, transformed into an open-air theater for a final, macabre performance witnessed by a select, unnerved few, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and grim fascination. She knew her role in this final act, understood the stark truth that her sacrifice was not merely about her own life, but about the precarious nature of sovereignty itself, a chilling testament to how quickly adoration could curdle into an unforgiving wrath when a monarch's will was thwarted. She was a woman made queen but never truly allowed to be free. To understand why such a horrifying spectacle unfolded, one must journey back to the very origins of Anne Boleyn's ascent, a path paved with ambition, intellect, and the unyielding currents of European politics. Born into a prominent but not royal family, likely around 1500 or 1501, Anne's early life was marked by an unusual exposure to the sophisticated courts of continental Europe. Sent first to the Netherlands, serving Margaret of Austria, and later to the dazzling, morally complex French court of Queen Claude, and then Francis I, she absorbed a world far removed from the conservative strictures of England. She learned languages, honed her musical talents, developed a keen intellect, and mastered the delicate art of courtly manipulation, observing firsthand the intricate dances of power and influence. This formative period cultivated in her a sharp wit and a captivating charm, a woman of modernity and independent thought that would prove both her greatest asset and ultimately her undoing. Upon her return to England around 1522, Anne was unlike many of her contemporaries. She possessed a cosmopolitan flair, a confidence that bordered on assertiveness, and an independence of mind that set her apart. She joined the court of Catherine of Aragon, Henry VIII's first queen, initially as a lady-in-waiting, a position that placed her directly within the orbit of royal power. It was here, amidst the stifling formality and the subtle currents of intrigue, that her presence began to exert an undeniable pull on the king. She was not conventionally beautiful by the standards of the day, lacking the fair skin and blonde hair admired by many, but her dark, expressive eyes and vibrant personality offered an allure that captivated the monarch. The seeds of a revolution, both personal and national, were unwittingly sown in the quiet chambers of the English court, promising an upheaval that few could have foreseen. Yet, something went wrong, fundamentally, irrevocably. The king's infatuation with Anne Boleyn was not a fleeting fancy. It was a relentless, consuming passion that would tear apart centuries of religious tradition and plunge England into unprecedented turmoil. Henry VIII, a monarch obsessed with securing a male heir and ensuring the continuity of the Tudor dynasty, had grown increasingly desperate with Catherine of Aragon, whose numerous pregnancies had yielded only one surviving child, Princess Mary. The prevailing theological and dynastic anxieties of the age led him to believe that his marriage to Catherine, his deceased brother's widow, was cursed by God, a violation of Levitical law that prevented him from producing a legitimate male successor. Anne, meanwhile, remained steadfast in her refusal to become his mistress, an insistence on marriage that profoundly challenged the king's conventional expectations and ignited an even deeper desire within him. This refusal, a calculated gamble on her part, forced Henry to confront the monumental obstacle of his existing marriage and the authority of the Pope. What began as a personal romantic pursuit quickly escalated into the great matter, a convoluted and protracted legal and theological battle for an annulment that would stretch for years. Henry's unwavering conviction that Anne was destined to be his queen, and the mother of his male heir, fueled his defiance of Rome, pushing him to challenge the very foundations of papal supremacy. His obsession with Anne and the desperate need for a male heir blinded him to the devastating implications of his actions, unleashing a wave of religious and social upheaval that would reshape the landscape of England forever. This pursuit, seemingly born of love, was in truth a crucible of ambition and a haunting precedent for future brutalities. The period of Anne's ascent was marked by intense political maneuvering and a burgeoning sense of peril, as the king's determination to marry her led him to an irreversible break with the Roman Catholic Church. With the Pope steadfastly refusing to annul his marriage to Catherine, Henry, guided by his new advisors and fueled by Anne's quiet insistence, made the audacious decision to declare himself the supreme head of the Church of England. This unprecedented act fundamentally altered the religious, political, and social fabric of the nation, unleashing forces that neither king nor court could fully control, creating a landscape ripe for future conflict and tragic sacrifice. The audacious gamble paid off, at least initially, for Anne, culminating in her secret marriage to Henry in January 1533, followed by a more public, albeit tense ceremony. On June 1, 1533, Anne Boleyn was crowned Queen of England at Westminster Abbey, a ceremony dripping with historical irony and shadowed by public resentment. Though she now held the highest female office in the land, her legitimacy was fiercely debated, and her popularity remained fragile, a stark contrast to the enduring affection for Catherine. She was a child made queen but never truly allowed to be a child, or even a truly accepted monarch. The expectation was immense. She must provide a male heir. Her pregnancy, announced shortly after the coronation, intensified the national anticipation, a collective holding of breath for the son who would secure the Tudor lineage. This was not merely a personal triumph, but a national gamble, a desperate roll of the dice on the promise of a golden age that was always just beyond reach, constantly threatened by the specter of disappointment and devastating consequence. The system meant to protect them had become their executioner. The immense pressure on Queen Anne to produce a male heir became an increasingly destructive force, systematically eroding her position and casting a long shadow over her reign. The birth of Princess Elizabeth in September 1533, while a joy for Anne, was a profound disappointment for Henry and the kingdom. While Elizabeth was a healthy and intelligent child, her gender represented a critical failure in the king's eyes, a perceived betrayal of the divine promise that had justified his monumental break with Rome. Subsequent pregnancies ended in devastating miscarriages, each lost fetus chipping away at Anne's dwindling favor and fueling the king's growing impatience and paranoia. The specter of a disputed succession, the very crisis Henry had sought to avert, began to re-emerge, twisting his affection for Anne into a chilling contempt. As Anne's inability to secure the male heir became apparent, her enemies at court, always plentiful and ever vigilant, began to openly conspire against her. Figures like Thomas Cromwell, once a staunch supporter of the Boleyn alliance, subtly shifted their allegiances, sensing the prevailing winds of royal discontent. The joyous expectations of her coronation gave way to a palpable tension, a quiet fear that permeated the royal chambers. Every perceived slight, every sharp word from Anne, every political misstep was magnified and weaponized, building a meticulous case for her eventual downfall. The fragility of power was laid bare. A queen who had risen so precipitously could fall even faster, her very existence now a liability to the increasingly autocratic monarch who had once been her most ardent champion. This was not an anomaly, it was a reflection of the brutal realities of power in Tudor England. The shift from Henry's cooling affection to outright suspicion was chillingly swift, culminating in a series of fabricated accusations that defied all reason and justice. In April 1536, a grand jury was convened to consider charges of treason against Anne, predicated upon astonishing and grotesque claims of adultery, incest, and even conspiracy to murder the king. These charges, including alleged affairs with several courtiers, her own brother George Boleyn, and even the king's own musician, Mark Smeaton, were demonstrably false, born of desperation and the king's desperate need to free himself for another marriage. The swiftness of these trials, the sheer audacity of the accusations, and the convenient timing of their appearance reveal a meticulously orchestrated plot, a judicial process designed not to seek truth, but to deliver a predetermined verdict. The accused men, many of them close to Anne and respected members of the court, were subjected to brutal interrogation, their confessions likely extracted under duress and fear of torment. Mark Smeaton, under severe pressure, did offer a confession, though its veracity remains highly questionable, providing the flimsiest of pretexts for the subsequent cascade of arrests. Anne herself was subjected to a mock trial within the Tower, presided over by her uncle, the Duke of Norfolk, a man whose loyalty had been strategically bought or coerced. The legal proceedings were a macabre parody of justice, meticulously staged to provide a veneer of legitimacy to a foregone conclusion. This brutal charade was a clear warning, not only to Anne but to anyone who might dare to cross the king's absolute will. It was not justice, it was a warning. Confined within the grim, unyielding walls of the Tower of London, a place she had once entered in triumph, Anne Boleyn's final days were a harrowing testament to psychological torment and the absolute fragility of human existence under tyrannical rule. Arrested on May 2, 1536, she was incarcerated in the very apartments she had occupied as a queen awaiting her coronation, an excruciating reversal of fortune designed to maximize her humiliation and despair. The stark contrast between past glory and present confinement was a psychological weapon, a constant reminder of her precipitous fall from grace and the devastating loss of everything she had once held dear. Surrounded by warders and servants who were essentially spies, every word, every gesture, every tear was meticulously reported back to Cromwell and the king, leaving her with no refuge, no privacy, and no genuine comfort. During her imprisonment, Anne's emotional state fluctuated wildly between desperate pleas for mercy, bewildered confusion at the charges leveled against her, and a haunting, almost surreal composure. She knew the charges were groundless, understood the cynical machinations behind her downfall, yet she was powerless to counteract the formidable machinery of state-sanctioned destruction. The silence of the Tower, punctuated only by the distant cries of gulls or the clanking of guards, served as a profound amplifier of her isolation. She spent hours reflecting on her life, perhaps seeking solace in prayer, her mind grappling with the incomprehensible turn of events that had transformed her from an adored monarch into a condemned prisoner. The weight of her situation, the imminent threat of extinction, must have been an unbearable burden, a profound darkness that engulfed her final days. The morning of May 19, 1536, dawned, gray and unyielding, signaling the precise hour of Anne Boleyn's final public ordeal. The scaffold had been erected within the privacy of the Tower Green, an intentional choice designed to limit the number of witnesses and prevent any public outcry, yet the grim spectacle resonated far beyond its immediate confines. A small, carefully selected crowd of about 1,000 people, including prominent courtiers, foreign ambassadors, and the Mayor of London, gathered in solemn silence, their collective breath held captive by the gravity of the moment. The air was thick with a morbid curiosity and a pervasive sense of unease as they waited to witness the unprecedented execution of a Queen of England, a profound violation of royal sanctity that seemed to defy the very order of the universe. Anne emerged from the Queen's lodgings, dressed in a dark damask gown, a crimson petticoat visible beneath. Her step was steady, her expressions serene, a remarkable display of composure in the face of imminent brutality. She ascended the scaffold with an unnerving grace, her eyes scanning the faces of those who had come to witness her end, perhaps searching for a glimmer of sympathy or simply acknowledging the grim role they played as silent witnesses. Her final speech was delivered with remarkable eloquence and dignity. acknowledging the king's authority without confessing guilt, submitting to her fate while subtly asserting her innocence. She spoke of her devotion, asked for prayers for the king, and commended her soul to God, a testament to her enduring faith even as she faced the ultimate betrayal. But to grasp the weight of this moment, one must understand the chilling precision that followed. The execution of Anne Boleyn was a deliberate, chilling display of efficiency and detachment, designed to convey the absolute power of the monarch and the futility of resistance. For this unprecedented event, Henry VIII had commissioned a skilled French executioner, celebrated for his precision with a sword, rather than the axe commonly used in England, perhaps an attempt to provide a swifter, less gruesome death, or perhaps to lend a veneer of foreign impartiality to an act of domestic brutality. As Anne knelt, blindfolded, uttering her final prayer, "To Jesus Christ I commend my soul," the executioner, with a single devastating stroke of his broadsword, severed her head from her body, performing his grim duty with a clinical detachment that defied the profound human tragedy unfolding before the silent witnesses. The swiftness of the act, the sudden, violent end to a life that had soared so high, left an indelible mark on those who witnessed it. Her body was unceremoniously placed in an old arrow chest and buried in an unmarked grave in the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula within the Tower grounds, a final indignity for a woman who had briefly worn a crown. The very next day, Henry VIII married Jane Seymour, her ascent to power as swift and unsettling as Anne's brutal downfall, a chilling testament to the king's ruthless pragmatism and his unwavering focus on securing a male heir. The memory of Anne, however, would persist, a haunting presence in the collective consciousness, a symbol of royal capriciousness and the devastating consequences of unchecked power. This was not merely an execution, it was a profound act of state terror. The brutal execution of Anne Boleyn reverberated across Europe, sending a chilling message about the absolute authority of the English crown and the precariousness of life within its orbit. Her death was not merely the end of a queen's life, it was a profound act of moral inversion, an assertion of power that revealed not justice, but fear, paranoia, and a king's ruthless determination to bend reality to his will. The charges against her were never truly believed by many, even at the time. Yet the state machinery, once set in motion, proved unstoppable, crushing individual innocence beneath the weight of systemic cruelty. Anne Boleyn's story serves as a haunting reminder of how fragile human rights can be, how quickly the defenseless can be consumed by the machinery of state violence, and how public complicity, whether through silence or acquiescence, can empower such atrocities. Centuries later, her enigmatic figure continues to fascinate and disturb. Her legacy intertwined with the English Reformation she unwittingly helped to ignite, and the profound tragedy of a child queen sacrificed on the altar of dynastic ambition. Her daughter, Elizabeth, against all odds, would ascend to the throne, becoming one of England's greatest monarchs, a living testament to Anne's spirit and a subtle rebuke to the father who had so cruelly discarded her mother. We must remember Anne Boleyn not merely as a victim, but as a woman of immense intelligence and courage who, by daring to challenge the established order, paid the ultimate price. Her story calls upon us to reflect on the nature of power, the failure of systems to protect the vulnerable, and the enduring human cost of political expediency. It is a mournful, sobering insight into the enduring shadows cast by history's devastating choices, a testament to the fact that some scars on the national psyche never truly heal,